Hey, this is Ab. I'm here with a super cool guitar. This is about as cool as they get in my book. This is a Wartime Gibson Banner LG-2. This is my personal guitar, but I'm selling it. I bought it during the lockdowns. I was at home and it came for sale, and I bought it. I bought it because it's one of my favorite guitars. LG-2 is what my grandfather played. He had a, I think, a 1943 LG-2 that he bought during the war. That's what I learned to play on. My first tunes and stuff, just for funsies, have a, if you can make it out, a picture of he and my son and dad and I together there, and he's playing one, as you can see. And so I bought one to have one like his, but it has some different features, and that's what we're going to talk about today. His was mahogany back and sides. This one is a maple back and sides. Very unique. They put it's maple wood, but they put a mahogany color on top of it. Same for the sides. This is a war effort type thing, like so many things that they did. They, for whatever reason, were running short on mahogany, or maybe they just had an excess of maple. Who knows? It also has a poplar, which you won't be able to see from this picture. A poplar block, neck block in there. And it has poplar lining. Some of it, poplar comes in this kind of creamy to green to charcoal gray color. It's all those colors. Some of the purfling, the curved lining up through here is that dark gray color. Very unique if you look inside. And a wonderful feature, one of my favorites that was similar to my grandfather's, and that's why I got it. It does have a maple neck on it, a 5-piece. It's maple, mahogany, maple, mahogany, maple, 5 pieces. And they did that when they didn't have truss rods, but they must have made extras, or they must have not had enough mahogany. They kept doing it. Kind of more of an arch top, kind of a neck thing. They did it when they didn't have truss rods earlier on, but they kept doing it for whatever reason and put truss rods in it. But they're super stable, super stiff necks, and stiff necks make for great tone and sustain. And this one has a little bit of adjustability to it, which is fantastic. I'm going to talk about, I guess, some of the things I did. It's pretty much everything you see here. An interesting thing about the origin of this actual guitar, I don't have the picture here, I have it somewhere. I'll put it up with the listing. This belonged to Eddy Arnold, the famed country singing legend. It was his guitar players back in the 50s, and I have a little letter with it that apparently when Eddy Arnold was learning to play guitar, apparently he was an accordion player before. This guitar player let him borrow it to learn on. So Eddy Arnold learned to play guitar on this, is the legend that comes along with it. We have a little picture and some notes and that kind of stuff. During that time, I don't know if they had a pick on it or pick up or what, but somebody had put a trapeze tailpiece, and you'll see as these do, that seemed to be the protocol on these. There you can see on these guitars when they started to have bellinging issues. The old concept was, hey, just put a trapeze tailpiece and run your strings over there, and it'll kind of push down. It does. This one did that, and unfortunately, it pushed and caused 2 very large cracks that might be hard to see here, but there was 2 very large ones, and because of that, it pushed the braces down. It didn't break the braces, but it pushed all the braces loose from the top as it pushed down. So they had all come up to an arching form, and then they're all pushed back down to almost, not to a concave, but as the top tried to go concave, of course, it pushed all the braces loose. Conveniently, it really hadn't had much repair work done before. So as far as doing the repair work, I did it all here in my shop. First thing was these giant cracks that went along there, and I'm a huge fan of the T.J. Thompson brace, not brace system, the crack cleating system. He sells this whole system for these tiny little cleats that are they're not paper thin, but they're close. They're cut diagonal to the grain and in multiple ways so they don't curl or anything. They're the right amount of, just the perfect amount of cleat to hold shut and keep the crack closed, but also not to make the top too heavy. In particular, this system, if you don't know about T.J. Thompson, he's probably the top luthier in the United States. He's the top Martin repairman. And these are what he uses on guitars that cost way more than the houses in my neighborhood. So it's a very well thought out, wonderful system of magnets that allows you to line up, especially on long cleats instead of doing single ones. It's almost like having a t-shirt or a dress shirt that's buttoned and you're pulling on it. That can happen on these where it creates gaps. It holds where the cleats are but spreads in other ones. This allows you to do these custom cleats that go between each brace. That's, I mean, lock tight that crack in place. It's a very important thing. Just so you know, this was done in the best means possible. It's done with hot hide glue, and in that process, it gets up in the crack and gets under here. And that hot hide glue shrinks. It's different than other glues. It shrinks as it cures, and pulls those cracks together. I mean, tight. It pulls them in, and so you're gonna have a hard time maybe seeing it. You can see the line. You cannot see a gap. It pulls them terribly tight. So this had been open for decades, these cracks on there, and this sucker, I mean, they pull them tight, and they're going to stay that way. So you don't have to worry about repairing them. In that process, after all the proper cleats were in place, every brace in there on the top, almost every brace had to be re-glued, and it was done with hot hide glue also, so it's serviceable for future generations, but also what it would have been on there originally. One little finger brace was missing and had to be replaced. I dare you to tell it apart. I cut one out of old brace wood from an old piano, so it's the same spruce, and it matches in there, color and everything and shape. It's a cloned brace. Sadly, the original bridge had been modified so heavily it was not savable. They had filled in all the slots and rounded it over to make it kind of like a floating bridge looking kind of thing. So sadly it was non-savable, but I have some wonderful Brazilian rosewood stock, and I was able to make a clone off of another 40s bridge that I have, and that's what that is. Same hole spacing, just a perfect little clone. Again, it'll probably fool you, but I want to be honest, that is a replacement bridge there. The pick guard had, what do you call it, gassed off so much that it was thin and crackled, almost like paint or like checking and finish. It was very, very thin. It had dried away, and it just was not serviceable. So a new... I'm quite pleased with this. This is the same color and everything as the original, and the same pattern, not a nitro, what do you call this? Celluloid pickguard. I got this material from Paul Fox. It's fantastic. And I think that's it for the repair work. I was able to take some vintage frets and replace these three with matching frets, the same kind of stock from a scrap neck I have, and somebody had sadly taken those out and put them back in very poorly before, and then leveled them down to where the tops were as thin as tinfoil, and that's not an exaggeration. So got that all cleaned up and beautiful here on the fingerboard, left those natural grooves, but it's the same fret material, original nut, original tuners, original, the finish is in just such beautiful shape on this thing. I did not need a neck reset once it all came together. As I said, these are very stable instruments with all this maple on them, except for the top, of course, when they're abused. And this thing was probably on the road and had a life, you know. So let's get into I think that was it for all the things I wanted to cover. Let's get into some sound samples. These are some of my favorites. Just real quick, the LG, my understanding, stands for gut. In the G there, they had a G model from I think the 30s where they had tried to do a classical. There's not a lot of them. If you look it up, you can find them. These are classical bodies. This will drop right in like a glove to a classical case, except for they took that previous design that they were trying to get in the classical game. Didn't go well. They used the same forms, but they made it a 14 fret, and they braced it up like a steel string guitar as opposed to a gut guitar. Gut, and that's what the old gut strings are on the classicals. So that's what's LG gut size as a gut string guitar, but it is steel string. And that being said, the classical guitars sound beautiful because they're beautifully designed. This is stealing from that and making it steel string. It's brilliant, very big, very warm, very responsive for their size. Much more what you'd think about a classical. This with the maple back and sides, scalloped bracing, all that kind of stuff. It's very powerful, very responsive. I hear some people use the word compressed in talking about these particular maple ones. I know when you have these more stable sides, because the sides aren't moving, it allows the top, they're up against something firm, much like a good snare drum. The sides of it are very firm, so the top can vibrate all the way out to the edge without it absorbing any of the vibrations. So there's something there on these. I'll just say that. Here we go. I'm gonna do some. Let's do some finger picking first. I was blown away with how wonderful the sound is for a guitar that hasn't probably been played in 2 or 3 decades. Usually they get pretty stiff and still. That is not the case, but that does mean that this guitar will likely open up more and more over time since it hasn't been played. Now it's getting played, but it sounds good right out of the gate. First time strung up. So here we go. This is incredibly loud for a guitar this size. I'm not very good at playing lead, but it has wonderfully, again, right out of the gate, low action, did not need a neck reset right here. It still has plenty of good saddle height there, so I am just pleased. Yeah, so all the frets are there, leveled and crowned, very smooth, all around in fantastic guitar. I hope this one doesn't sell right away. I'm hoping to get a lot of playing out of it. So there you have it. A Wartime banner, LG-2, maple back and sides, maple neck. Thanks for watching.